Welcome to today's episode of Talking Tinnitus, presented by Neil. We're here with Dr. Ross O'Neill. Welcome back to the show, Ross. Good to have you.
Neil.
Ross has a PhD in biomedical engineering. His doctoral research into neuroscience led to bimodal neuromodulation for tinnitus, and he is the founder and CEO of Neuromod Devices, who are the inventors of Neil. So today's topic is, what is real-world evidence and why is it important? So we might start with the first part of that, which is, what is real-world evidence?
Okay, so normally when you are evaluating a new medical intervention, medical device like Linear, you do it in a controlled clinical trial. So that's where you really want to determine what is the efficacy and safety of the product itself.
Yeah.
So you do it in a very closely controlled environment. Now, when you move, past, let's say you get FDA approval and you start to roll the product out, what you do then is you track the performance of that product in the real world, in these clinics. And why that is so important is you're moving from that very controlled environment out into the wilds of clinical practice. And you want to see if it performs as well in the real world as it does in clinical trials.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So whether it's Linear or something else, that maybe the profile of the patient population might be slightly different in the real world than it would be in that very controlled clinical trial space, essentially.
Exactly. So clinical trials have very strict inclusion and exclusion criteria.
Yeah.
So you only include patients that meet that profile.
Sure.
And so in the real world, that can change a little bit. Also, a lot of the clinical setting, the skills of the providers, all that kind of stuff can change how the product performs in the real world versus this highly controlled environment of a clinical trial.
Sure. And probably I suppose the treatment protocol could look slightly different too. So maybe very controlled, like we're going to do a follow-up on this particular date after you've started treatment. And then like another follow-up at this time, another follow-up. Whereas maybe in the real world, it's more about when can we get, the patient and the provider calendared even to come and see. So it might look a little bit grayer, I suppose, in that area.
That's exactly it. Okay. So in a clinical trial, you want every patient to follow the very same protocol.
Yes.
So then they can be...
You can answer a specific question.
You can look at the statistics of that group. So because every patient has gone through the exact same profile. Process. But in the real world, people have jobs, they have lives, they've got families, so it doesn't happen, so all of those things become variables. So what the regulators like the FDA want to know is, how do they affect performance of the product?
Sure.
They are obviously, they want to know the product continues to be effective and most importantly, continues to be safe.
Of course.
So their job is to protect patients. So that's why companies like Neuromod continue to collect real world data, and then that feeds back into your regulatory controls. 100%. And so that the regulatory bodies like the FDA, you present that data to them and it gives them comfort that it continues to be effective and safe for patients.
Okay, super. So, important to collect it because it's required from a regulatory perspective to keep the patient population safe and make sure that it's effective in the real world environment. And then obviously there's a lot of learnings, I suppose, that the manufacturers such as ourselves can take as we gather that data. I believe there's been a recent preprint publication of real world data from US patients of Linear, I think about 220 or so, which is showing good outcomes.
Yeah. So we have been very closely tracking our real world data, not only for regulatory purposes, but also to continue to build confidence in the technology. So when you launch new technology, there's a lot of questions, is it safe? Is it effective?
Yeah.
And that's why we've been so rigorous in collecting that data. So we have, an extensive body of clinical trial data now. We've done the largest and longest followed up clinical trials ever conducted in tinnitus. And now we're on a mission to build the largest body of real world evidence that's ever been seen behind a tinnitus intervention.
Yeah.
And that's, as I said, to make sure it continues to be effective, continues to be safe, but also to continue to build belief in this technology. So yes, and we are going to publish that in line with our, our philosophy of transparency.
Yes.
So we have taken data for 220 patients from one of our providers in the US, and we've submitted that for peer review.
Yep.
So again, to add to the body of peer-reviewed data that we have out there, and that will be the first of many of these publications. So yeah.
Very good. And just for those who don't know, peer review kind of means there's an independent entity essentially pouring through and reviewing, the veracity of the data. Essentially.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
A peer review is where you bear your soul, bear the soul of your research to experts in the field. So there will be statistical experts.
Sure.
There will be clinical trial experts. There will be scientific experts. There will be medical experts, and they will review your data and they will rigorously test it to ensure that it meets the highest standards. And if it does, then it gets published. And again, that builds the transparency and credibility and trust in the technology.
Yeah, it's a robust process. When the data makes it out the other end, it's it should it means something.
Oh yeah, it's like it's hard to get papers published.
Yeah,
particularly in high tier journals, like Nature and Science are two of the top journals out there. And now at this point, Neuromod have several publications in those high tier journals, and we will continue to build on that, growing body of evidence. As I said, we're on a mission to build the credibility and trust in this approach, in this bimodal approach. And the next phase of that is to publish real world data.
Super. Well, look, I'm certainly looking forward to it. I know people out in the Tinnitus ecosystem are as well. But I think we've definitely answered the question today, why real world evidence is so important. So thanks for your time, Ross.
Absolutely.